most people will hold Bitcoin but not realize that they really hold it. It'll be part of their 401k, right? They're not like getting their hardware wallet, throw it in, getting their own private keys, stamping their seed words into metal. It's probably not for most people. They don't have the time, right, to research. Most people, right? We're just too busy. Everyone is fighting inflation and running on that hamster wheel, and it's just getting harder and harder to free up time to do things. We'll do sell the news, but also there was no purchasing of new Bitcoin, which we thought they were going to do. I think it was 1 million Bitcoin a year or 5 years to fund the reserve, something like that. A ton of Bitcoin that would have dropped through on the price up. So there's not necessarily like a commitment to buy Bitcoin with like new money. I know that they swept in a lot of the confiscated Bitcoin to that reserve, and then from what it sounds like, dumped the shit coins to buy more Bitcoin with it. But I think it's just, they're in. It's like the biggest deal in the world for us, right? And we're like, oh, if a strategic Bitcoin reserve gets announced, it's going to be hard to buy Bitcoin under 100K, get it while it's 5 digits before you can ever get it while it's 5 digits again. And then it happens, and it's just like, wow. At the end of the day, holding real Bitcoin in cold storage is a superpower.
I'm super envy what's going on in the States in Bitcoin. There's so much happening and so much talk about. In Europe, it's just on the political level. I mean, now it's just very almost silent. They don't want, and if they say something, it's usually disappointing from a Bitcoiner perspective.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's definitely like one of those times where years happen in days, right? Like that's kind of where we're at since the new elections have changes that come, and luckily Bitcoin was able to ride in on that change, and we were all very optimistic, and then we were a little scared for a little bit. There was a little shitcoinery going on for that brief period of time with the executive order for the researching digital assets, and what Solana, XRP, all these old coins become part of the reserve, but we broke through. It's kind of like the federal government had their shitcoiner phase at a very hyper rapid pace, and yeah, we're full Bitcoin now, or at least we're heading that way. So it's exciting, but like it's also interesting because like I was listening to a podcast from Seyr back from 2020, one of the Seyr series, and some portion of the podcast he's talking about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. If that became a thing in the U.S., the implications of it, what it would mean. And I'm just sitting there listening. I'm like, here we are today, and it really doesn't even feel like it happened. It's like things happen in Bitcoin, and then it's almost like Bitcoin doesn't care. We don't care. We move past it so fast, and it's like, what's the next thing? Because it's inevitable, and it's just the U.S. is a big signal to take our strategic reserve, right? But other countries will follow, and other things will happen, and it's just kind of like, all right, what's the next thing? Just like when we hit 100K, it was like we got tired of it after a while. It was like we're sitting at like 102 for the longest time, so we get excited for things, and then they happen, and it's like, okay, it happened, and I think it's like part of us in the back of our head. We kind of know that it's going to happen because we've studied Bitcoin and we understand its implications and how it ultimately is inevitable on a global level. People will just go where Bitcoin is. So it's not much of a surprise. But like you were saying with Europe, I think like I saw in Prague, like they're embracing it fully, right? I know that's, I saw some news come out a few weeks back. The central bank, I think in Prague, is embracing Bitcoin or something to that effect, right?
Yeah, it's early stages, but they passed like a motion to investigate if they should put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So they first had to pass that they even are able to research that and investigate that. And now they're currently researching that and investigating that. And it's interesting because the European Union, I think Chris Lagarde is just saying, oh, like they will not do it. They're not stupid, basically, and they're not putting Bitcoin on. She's talking in that kind of a way. Yeah. But if you look what Jack is saying, they really, I think, are moving forward. They also recently passed a law that if you hold Bitcoin longer than 3 years, it's tax free, which is a major step. It's also similar in Germany, where if you hold Bitcoin for 1 year or longer, it's tax free. So there are definitely positive things going on. It's just not as big of a discussion as in the States, which is as a Bitcoiner in Europe, kind of sad for me to see.
Sure, I could see that. There's a lot of things happening, and like I was in Were you in Nashville? I think you were, right? Or no?
Oh, unfortunately not. This year, Las Vegas, I will be, and it will be my first American conference.
Nice, yeah. I mean, that's going to be crazy conference, right? There's so much excitement around that Vegas show because it's a location that conference has never been, and they get bigger every year. But I've been at 3 of them so far, like the Bitcoin conference ones, and Nashville was just on a totally different level. The amount of excitement because of the guests there, like let's face it, you had Trump was there, RFK was there, so you have 2 people who are running for president at a Bitcoin conference, and it was just like I had FOMO going to it. Like I was going, but I had FOMO because we're a stamp seed, so we set up our booth there for people to demo, what it feels like to stamp your seed words into metal, give people that feel for the first time. So I'm busy the whole weekend. I can't really step out and do much. So I had FOMO going to it. And I mean, the amount of people there was just insane. I mean, you had lines that wrapped around the exhibit floor that have like never happened before to wait in line to get to some of these sessions because you have security and Secret Service, things like that. But just the size of the conference was insane. There's so much excitement around it. And even people in my life who aren't in Bitcoin were asking about it. It's becoming mainstream. You go to the news stations or like media areas at these conferences, and now you have serious media outlets there. So, they're seeing the excitement and they're going to keep coming, and it's just going to keep getting larger and larger. So like these conferences are becoming huge events and less of that like meetup feel that some of the more niche, Bitcoin conferences have. But it's a lot of excitement, man. It really is a kind of like a crazy time to be alive throughout all of this. We've lived through interesting times on the dawn of the internet, and now the next phase, monetizing, I guess, the internet as best as possible through Bitcoin. So it's a very unique time to be living, man. It's insane.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. Maybe let's touch one more time on the strategic Bitcoin reserve and what's kind of happening there. What is the implication that I'm also thinking about, because I listened to the Seyr series, but I cannot remember what Seyr said of the implications. Maybe you can recall that. What is kind of the implication of that strategic Bitcoin reserve long term? Because currently, it does not, short term, it's not doing anything because they're not buying even Bitcoin. It's just like holding the ones. It's more of a how to frame it currently and not really an implication there. What do you think it will be the long-term view of that?
So, yeah, I mean, like where we're at now is the price drop there for the reserve was announced because, people do sell the news, but also there was no purchasing of new Bitcoin, which we thought they were going to do. I think it was 1 million Bitcoin a year for 5 years to fund the reserve, something like that. A ton of Bitcoin that would have dropped through on the price up. So there's not necessarily like a commitment to buy Bitcoin with like new money. I know that they swept in a lot of the confiscated Bitcoin to that reserve, and then they're going to, from what it sounds like, dump the shit coins to buy more Bitcoin with it. But I think it's just, they're in. Like I look at it, okay, like ultimately they're going to be purchasing Bitcoin. And I haven't really looked into exactly why they haven't yet, but I do believe the reason is because there's a lot of government cutting right now for government spend through Doge. So I think it kind of goes against what they're trying to do to fund something else, right? So I think it has a little bit to do with that. But ultimately, I see the U.S. purchasing a certain amount of Bitcoin per year because it's really, and I'm surprised they haven't yet. I think it has to do with the previous regime. I know the previous regime were like more into XRP and kind of on that side a little bit, or they're at least being wined and dined by that side. So I think it's just a matter of time ultimately, because when you look at game theory, sort of plays out. If other countries purchase this Bitcoin, it's a form of power, and El Salvador has a huge head start on most others. And there's only so many Bitcoin, right? It's just like regular plebes are fighting, or not fighting, but doing everything they can do to get as much Bitcoin as possible to front run the next segment that's coming in. The same thing's going to happen at the nation state level, at the corporate level too. There's definitely a benefit to being the first one there. So ultimately, I see them. I can't see turning back from here. The one thing that worries me is, which I haven't really heard much people talk about this, but I want to see what your thoughts are. But obviously, like the U.S. is extremely polarized, right? More than ever. I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost impossible to go on social media and just deal with it because it's such an echo chamber, and it's impossible, right? So like my fear is that if people, right, half the country hates Trump, maybe less than half. If he embraces Bitcoin, does that align Bitcoin with the right? Right? Is there, and a lot of Bitcoiners are on the right. We have a lot of right side values. A lot of the things we do and say have to coincide with that. Obviously, there's left and right Bitcoiners, but I just worry that it becomes kind of politicized. And if the next regime comes in, who knows, right? It's kind of like unpredictable. So that's like the only fear that I have. If Trump like leans into Bitcoin extremely, which I guess he kind of did, like he has a Bitcoin watch, Bitcoin shoes. It's kind of interesting how he's branded himself out with it, but I just get worried that becomes something other people don't want to embrace just because there's a person behind it. And I hate the idea of like one person being behind Bitcoin. I think it's bad for it. Like that's why I think if Satoshi ever revealed his name, I think it would be the worst thing for Bitcoin. I just don't think people like to hate. People like to find weaknesses, and if you don't like the person, you won't invest in the coin, so or hold it. So that's the one thing that worries me. But ultimately, I think Bitcoin's inevitable. It's just a matter of what your time preference is.
It's super interesting to think about that, but I don't know if you have seen that. I even interviewed one or two of those people. There was a big movement of Bitcoiners for Harris. They collected Bitcoins, they collected money, and they actually, because of those things and because also Trump was turning more and more for Bitcoin, the administration or the election group around Kamala Harris was getting more and more pro Bitcoin to the end of the till the end where the election actually was. So I do, and actually every time I posted a very pro like Trump guy that came onto the podcast that talked about Bitcoin, I usually got comments of like, oh, like I'm a Democrat and Bitcoiner. I hate Trump. Like there is certainly, I think, like a big silent group that really voted for Kamala Harris, really is a Democrat, and really doesn't like Trump and doesn't like the Republicans that are still Bitcoiners. And they probably are not the majority. I think the majority is probably on the Republican side. But there is a good amount of people that are Democrats. I mean, it's just something that I observed from afar. Like I was literally one time in America for like 3 days. So I don't have any insights in America, but from all the people from America that I spoke to and from my comments, I can see that there are Democrats, that there are people outside of the Trump gang, if you so will, that are for Bitcoin. And I think it's inevitable that Bitcoin is a political thing because it's so important in our society that politicians have to talk about it. And if politicians start talking about a thing, it gets political. if you know what I mean. Bitcoin doesn't care, but it gets in the eye of the society political.
Yeah. I think I agree with that fully, but part of like the concern I was saying, would mention before, is people tend to, like, I'm thinking about the next wave of people coming in, right? Or we're working towards mass adoption. We're not nearly there yet. And people still think that Bitcoin uses too much energy and it's bad for the environment, it boils oceans, and it's used for terrorism and it's used for drugs. So, and like people kind of hear these things once and then it becomes their talking point because the Operation Mockingbird sort of effect. All these mainstream media guys are saying pretty much the same exact thing, right? Elon Musk posted something with like maybe like 20 screenshots of people just kind of chirping the same thing and echoing it. So that's a very powerful tool that most people don't have time to even read one book a year. So they kind of pick up these headlines on social media or, mainstream media, and they hear everyone talking about it. It becomes a thing. Bitcoin's bad, right? So I just worry about that part. Obviously, like Bitcoin is heading the way it is, but it's annoying when these things kind of keep slowing adoption and they're completely incorrect. And I just wonder if, it would be politicized in that way where, who knows? That's the only thing, but.
It is annoying to see that, and I still get that energy and environment thought around it. I'm actually tomorrow on a small Austrian podcast invited because a friend of mine is doing there, and they had some fears around Bitcoin, and they wanted me to explain it, and they sent me a list of things, and like it's like one fat after another. So it will be really fun tomorrow to talk with them because they're non-Bitcoiners and they have those questions. And I see outside of the Bitcoin world, it's still in the head of like, oh, like it uses too much energy. But even if like it's debunked and stuff like that, but people don't really read those things. Like people don't really research anything. They just see it and they're like, okay, the Bitcoin uses too much energy. They read a headline and then this is their fault. It's not even their fault. Like most people actually operate that way. They see something, they take it in, and if someone asks them about Bitcoin, that's the only thing they ever read about it. And they're like, okay, it uses too much energy. That's the only thing I know about Bitcoin. So I never met someone that actually, and it's really interesting when you have someone that says like, oh, Bitcoin is using too much energy. If you ask them 3 questions, they don't know the answer to the 4th question because they don't really have done any research. So I don't know if it's a concern, because I think long term, people will adopt Bitcoin if they want or not. I think most people will never understand Bitcoin, but I don't know if how you think about the mass adoption happening. But I think it's probably like the TCP/IP protocol, where most people couldn't explain what it is, but everyone uses it every day. It probably will be a thing like that.
Yeah, I mean, almost like similar to that. Like most people will hold Bitcoin, but not realize that they really hold it. It'll be part of their 401k, right? They're not like getting their hardware wallet, throw it in, getting their own private keys, stamping their seed words into metal. But, it's probably not for most people. So passively owning it through an IRA, 401k, pension fund, something like that, or just, trading it. And, I think people like ultimately like they don't have the time, right, to research. Most people, right? Like I was saying before, most people don't even read one book a year. We're just too busy. Everyone is fighting inflation and running on that hamster wheel, and it's just getting harder and harder to free up time to do things like research and study and improve upon life, right? And I think it's a lot easier for people it's like in nature, right? You see something that you don't understand, the best thing to do is to kind of fear it in a way and, kind of disregard it. It's easier to do that. So I think when people hear these things, Bitcoin is bad for the environment, okay, great. Like I don't have time to even fight against that or understand it, but I hear these talking heads saying it, so that's what I'm sticking with. It's just a fear of the unknown. It's like a natural reaction most people have. So yeah, like it's just interesting to see, right? And like you find people that say they research Bitcoin or study it, and then, like you said, you find out they can't answer that 4th question. And it's like anyone that really has put the work in and study it, like they're Bitcoiners at this point. Like I haven't met anybody that was like, I studied Bitcoin for 100 hours and, it's not for me. I don't get it. I'd rather be on the fiat standard. I mean, they would have to get their head checked. It just doesn't make any sense. So, I'm kind of in my own like Bitcoin world, I guess. We talk to a lot of the same people, right? But, you step out and you just realize it's totally different out there. People I think ultimately it comes down to people don't have time, right? It's part-time jobs, investing part-time, managing families. It's impossible for a lot.
Yeah, and we are also very early. If you think about the progression of how many people actually have Bitcoin or use Bitcoin, how many people have like a steel plate, how many people have a hardware wallet. That number, I think, is shockingly small. Like how many people actually understand Bitcoin? It's actually an interesting question. What's your best guess of like how many people actually do understand Bitcoin?
Well, I do have like a little bit of data that just, shared industry data between hardware wallet companies and seed storage companies like us, where like if you look at crypto as a whole, right, and everything, which I think makes sense because a lot of people early in the phase think Bitcoin is crypto. It's synonymous with that word. They've kind of estimated that like 10% of people that have crypto are in cold storage, meaning they sent their private, they possess their own private keys. They took it off the exchange, about 10% of people. And then of that, like another like tidbit is like about 1% of those people backed up their seed words on metal. So there's a lot of like resistance against fully understanding what it is. And people kind of go through their phases where first you're investing in stocks, day trading, and then you get into crypto, and then you lose money in crypto, and then you find out Bitcoin is what you want, and then you don't have enough Bitcoin to justify pulling it off the exchange and spending $200 on a hardware wallet and a few $100s on seed storage. So then it sits there, and then life gets ahead of you, and you say, "I'll do it later. I'll do it another week. I'll do it another week," and it just kind of like never happens. So it takes a while for people to get to that phase where they're like fully possessing Bitcoin, owning it, and like if you're so like I guess that's kind of like a cold storage metric, I guess. But for people that fully understand it, I mean, based on that, it's got to be less than like 1% of the population, right? Yeah, I don't think that'd be crazy to think. What about you?
It's. I think 1% is way too high.
Yeah, being optimistic, right?
Yeah, because if you, I don't know, like, let's say there's 500 million people in Bitcoin somehow, let's say then 10% of them have some sort of hardware wallet, that's then 50 million. I think that is even like too high of a number of how many people actually understand Bitcoin. And then there are like, this is crypto people, so you probably have like if someone really understands Bitcoin, they're not into crypto. for my liking at least. So you cut that number apart, and you probably end up even like maybe under 1 million of who would actually understand Bitcoin and fully to a degree that where they can talk about it and educate other people around it, and maybe a little bit higher if you. It also depends on like what is understanding Bitcoin. If you have 50% of your net worth in Bitcoin, but you couldn't explain why do you understand Bitcoin? No, with your actions, yes, but maybe not with your words. It's a hard topic of like making a definition of like who understands Bitcoin or not.
Right. A lot of people go like, yeah, I understand Bitcoin. I get it. It's like, okay, you just heard of it, right? And there's so much to learn there. There's so many different fields of study. Like you could study Bitcoin forever. You still don't understand it. That the best thing to do is to never feel like you fully do, right? And there's a lot of people who didn't study it that think they do, right? And it's low, and it feels like it's higher because we go to conferences, we go on podcasts, right? We're talking to people all day about Bitcoin. We're on X, and it seems like it's bigger than it is. But I guess you're right. Like you step outside, and no one knows about it. I was at dinner with when the Bitcoin reserve was announced. Was it like last week on a weeknight? It was like right around dinner time for us here in the States, and like. I was looking at my phone like, holy shit, it happened. Like, I couldn't believe it. You know how it is sometimes where you just like, you go on X and like the craziest thing happened. And you're like, I missed this. This has happened for like 5 minutes already. Everyone's talking about it. I'm like, holy crap, it's here. And then like, I looked away from my phone and everyone's like, what happened? Is everything all right? Like, I was like, the strategic Bitcoin reserve. And like, no one even knew what I was saying. It was like I was speaking a different language. They're like, the strategic what coin? What's an executive order? Like, people, no one knows anything, it seems. So I'm just like, guys, like this means that. And then like, right away, the eyes glaze over and no one kind of gets it. And then it's like, okay, well, what's next? What are you eating? What is that? Can you pass some of the fries over there? Like there's just no concern or care. It's really interesting. It's like the biggest deal in the world for us, right? And we're like, oh, if a strategic Bitcoin reserve gets announced, it's going to be hard to buy Bitcoin under 100K. Get it while it's 5 digits before you can ever get it while it's 5 digits again. And then it happens, and it's just like, wow. It's not a big thing for most. It's kind of shocking to me.
It's that theory of like understanding Bitcoin almost feels like insider trading. it's like almost we're in a small group, and we know things will happen, but the rest of the world doesn't know. And now we are placing our bets, even though it's all public information. Like there is no inside information in Bitcoin, but it feels like insider trading because it's a public secret. And when you go out and you're like, they don't know about it, and they also don't care about it. It's right. Fascinating.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, thank you. More for me. It's interesting, but like I think that's where like the gradually then suddenly thing comes into play, right? Because the gradually is still happening. It's happening slow and slow and slow. Then one day all these, the script's going to flip. I thought the reserve could do that, but it could be something else. Yeah, gradually then suddenly, and it's it is interesting. I mean. So early. I feel that all the time, but it's like I don't know if you feel like this, but I feel like I'm living in two worlds where when I'm at work and when I'm speaking with Bitcoiners, it's like that's one world, and then I step out and it's like clown world is still out there in full effect. And you're just like, wow, like people are still thinking the way I was thinking 10 years ago. Like they haven't moved past that. Like they still trust, uncovering Bitcoin and studying Bitcoin, like you're red pilling yourself and orange pilling yourself at the same time, or you probably red pilled yourself already and you orange pilled yourself after the fact. So there's like so much going on there that you're really, like you said, insider trading, you understand what is going to happen next and you have a little bit of a feel on things, but you also understand how the world works a little bit better and kind of what fiat does and how USD is, not affecting just the States, but all the other countries that, are using that as money they're backing their currency with ultimately. And you kind of see behind the curtain, and it's an interesting privilege, and it feels like it's like right there for everybody to learn, right? It's just there. It's this free thing that you could fully immerse yourself in, study, take any direction you want with Bitcoin. It could be, obviously money itself, food. I see a lot of people take that direction when they start to look at the food they're eating and start to re-examine why they're being served the food they are being served, how, the CPI basket has been changed throughout the years because we can't keep up with the price of eggs and beef. So they add, hundreds of other products into the CPI basket to adjust the price. Things that are subsidized with corn and soy. And you start to you can take so many different paths with studying that field. And it's like right there for everybody. But the problem is ultimately what I think is, well, probably two things. It's time. Nobody has the time to do it for the things we were talking about before. But then it's also when people do have time, masses, right? I think there's distractions that get in the way, right? You have free time. I'm going to watch Netflix. I'm going to go binge watch a series. Hey, did you see the new Squid Game series? Yeah, let's talk about that for the first 2 hours of work today and think about it and then watch it later tonight. Like there's just so many other things that people are kind of chasing. You have consumerism too on top of that. There's that urge to purchase to fill a void or to buy things before they become more expensive or just to distract yourself. So I think that there's a lot, especially in the States here, there's a lot of things that distract the shit out of people. And then like if you go back in time, right, when none of this stuff existed, right, there's no electricity, funneling through your house to watch things like Netflix and do that. I feel like people were smarter, right? They had more time to study and be introspective, think about the world around them, perfect a craft for their entire life because there were no things that got in the way. So like if you plug something like Bitcoin into like a time like that, people would study it and fully understand it probably. But nowadays there's so many shiny objects kind of waving in the way where it's like most people don't read anymore, man. It's really what it comes down to. And then you have like at least podcasts, like that's great. I think that's a great way for people who don't have time who are commuting to listen to these things and study and whatnot. But then you look at how many podcasts there are and it's nearly impossible to ever find Bitcoin and break through. And then if you're in that discovery phase on YouTube trying to learn about this stuff, all the shitcoin scam videos tend to get like more action, more bot activity. So that's where people are going to go where they find the 1 million view video, not where they find the 10,000 view high signal video. It's just less likely to happen. There's so many things kind of getting in their way. So, there's just so many things. It's hard to focus on the one thing that, I feel truly matters, that no one's in control of, that no one can change on you and rug you with. But it's tough, but it's kind of funny. It's like telling somebody that if you buy this and wait, you'll be rewarded. And all you have to do is literally buy it and hold it. And people just won't even kind of fully listen to what you're saying. They're probably already thinking about what they're going to say next, a way to change the subject. Just most people don't care. Like I think I have like one or probably like out of like my best friend group, that core group of friends, I have like one that's interested in Bitcoin that wants to learn about it. I gave him a book to read, everything. He still hasn't bought it yet. He's just waiting. It takes so long, man. You just got to make the jump and do it.
Let's take a break for a moment and appreciate the beauty that Coin Vigilante has made with the Bitcoin watches. Those watches are the most amazing, the most elegant way of showing that you are a true Bitcoiner. And Coin Vigilante just dropped a completely new and amazing Genesis edition of their watch collections. You have the date of the first ever mined Bitcoin block in there. And of course also the block height and which epoch we are currently in. I love the level of detail they put in this masterpiece. Make sure to check out those amazing Coin Vigilante timepieces down in the descriptions. I love those watches so much. And now if you have Bitcoin, I really do hope that you don't have it on exchange. But if you do have it on exchange, I have two ways for you to deal with that. The first way is you put it on a hardware wallet. That's the entry for you to get into the self-custody game. I recommend BitBox, Bitcoin only edition for that. It's a super simple and secure way. And if you check out the link in the description, you even get 5% off if you use the code Robin. And the second way is the Bitcoin way. The Bitcoin way is your all-in partner in terms of how to get the most out of your sovereignty. They will personalize for you a self-custody setup that is perfect for your individual situation. They will show you how you can secure your own devices. Securing your Bitcoin is not enough. You also have to keep all your devices secure. One topic that is overlooked often is the inheritance plan. What happens with your Bitcoin once you are no longer here? Do you have a plan for that in place already? And last but not least, if you're in the jurisdictions where you don't feel safe, it's better to get a plan B. For all that, head over to thebitcoinway.com/Robin to get a 30-minute free call. And just a quick side note, I will be for the first time ever speaking at the Bitcoin Prague event in June. It will be absolutely legendary and I'm really looking forward to seeing all of you there. You can get your ticket in the link down in the description of Bitcoin Prague, and very important, use code Robin to get 10% off your ticket. I'm really looking forward seeing you there. It's fascinating how I love that topic of people are not focused, people are distracted, and it's the fiat system that puts them into that hamster wheel of like, oh, I have to keep up with the invoices, I have to keep up with the bills that come in, I have to keep up with all the things, and they don't have the time to step back and, I don't know, read a book on Sunday evening, actually research a topic, and I see that actually in my audience. Most of my audience is like 45 years old, because young people, especially, are now so distracted. They watch 2-hour TikToks, but don't take the time to listen to 30 minutes of a podcast because they feel like they get more. But 2 hours of TikToks, your brain is just fried afterwards. After 30-minute podcast, you might actually get like 1-2 nice nuggets out there. Might actually get some learnings out there. That's why I'm also, unfortunately, taking my shorts distribution and clips distribution not as serious, but I should take it more serious to get that signal of Bitcoin also in that frameworks in there, because maybe he sees that one short and he's like, oh, like so seems interesting, and then there's like a 1 hour podcast, he's like, oh, I saw that in short, so like let's dive deeper. So I think we Bitcoiners also have kind of a responsibility to try to get people into that thing and make it as interesting as possible, because I think Bitcoin is for me a social revolution. So it does matter how present we are in all those areas. So we need the podcasts, we need TikTokers that talk about Bitcoin. We need on LinkedIn more people that talk about Bitcoin. I think LinkedIn is a hell place for fiat. So we need more Bitcoiners also there. I think Nostra and Twitter, we have enough there. It's like Nostra and Twitter is very nicely served with Bitcoiners. YouTube also has more and more Bitcoiners on there, but it could be more. And I think TikTok, LinkedIn, and Instagram, those are like places online just where we need way more Bitcoiners to pump content out there. And then in general population, just like going out on the street and making people aware of Bitcoin. And I met Bitcoiners who love Bitcoin, but they never talk about Bitcoin in their families, in their wider circles. And we need to kind of talk about it. We need to tell people about it to a certain degree to make that social revolution more peaceful, because there's this time of the suddenly moment that we talked about, and I think there is a chance that it's not peaceful. And I think the more we talk about it, the more open and kind we are doing the orange pilling, the higher the chances that we actually have a peaceful revolution to that point. Because I do think we come to a Bitcoin world, but I think it's not fixed yet how we get there. And I think it does matter how we speak about Bitcoin and how we do the orange pilling.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense to touch upon the platforms that there isn't a lot of signal, and you have to get people in, right? And there's other low signal things on those platforms, whether it be crypto in general or anything else, really, that kind of sucks people in, especially on TikTok. So it's good to reshare things there and distribute it. But ultimately, I mean, it's not like no big. I don't know if any Bitcoiners are like TikTok first, right? Like they're making videos for TikTok and then clipping it for shorts. Like it's usually the other ways around, but it almost just makes sense. Hey, copy the stuff and put it in these other places and see what it does, right? And it's good to be there for people for when they want to learn about it, right? And it's like we understand what Bitcoin is. It's almost like we were talking before, like there's this thing that people could take and they don't. It's like I have a life raft and the boat's sinking and you're not coming on the life raft, right? And if that was the case, you wouldn't even have to X people. They would just run to it, or you would scream, hey, get over here. But if Bitcoiners scream, hey, get over here, do this, and we act like frantic, no one's going to listen, right? So it's kind of like very like, hey, here's the information. Do your own research. I'm laying it out for you, and it's up to you to kind of want to jump in and get it. And for some people, that clicks right away. For some people, it takes longer for that to click. Some people, that will never kind of click. And then they'll see other people embracing it, and they'll just kind of follow what others are ultimately doing, or just, passively hold Bitcoin in their 401k over time. So, it's a certain approach that, we take that's very important. Like I kind of moved past the point of trying to I don't want to say beg people to buy Bitcoin, but it kind of feels that way from your own perspective. Like, hey, I told you about it. If you have questions, ask me at this point. Read this book, listen to this podcast. These are great foundations, and ask questions, right? That's kind of like the best thing we could do. And it's the best way to learn. And I mean, ultimately, a lot of people also learn the hard way, right? They buy all these cryptos and altcoins and they lose it all. And then, some people might embrace Bitcoin from there and kind of study it from there. Or some people might just kind of tap out altogether. So it's great that we have a lot of people in the space pushing out these videos. And I feel like since 2020, that's ramped up incredibly. Like it was hard to kind of find podcasts in the day. There were Bitcoin books, but there weren't that many. And now it's impossible to kind of keep up with all this good content that's coming out. Yeah, it's out there for people. You have a lot of great videos, right? Everyone does. There's a lot of great books that are out there. It's just it's not on mainstream media enough yet, and that's where it probably has to be eventually for people to fully understand it.
Absolutely. Was for you Bitcoin the awakening point, or was there something else that kind of red pilled you before that already?
What red pilling?
No, I'm thinking about Bitcoin usually is the point for people where they ask questions about things they never asked questions before, as we talked with food and stuff like that. Yeah. And I'm wondering if Bitcoin was for you that moment, or if there's something else that made you aware of things.
No, I think I red pilled myself. I mean, probably as young as 15 at a first touch red pilling, where it was just you initially tell yourself it's impossible the president to be running the country. That was something I always thought as a younger kid, right? One guy doesn't run it. There's a shadow group of people running it for him. There's people that run this world, whether it be the Federal Reserve or people in media, whatever it is. Whatever we're being told is not the truth. So that was the initial kind of phase for me. But I was just naturally someone that, I guess, contrarian mindset, distrust in authority. I didn't really trust my teachers. I didn't trust friends' parents. I understood that people were people and people make mistakes, and authority is just kind of this fake sort of figure that someone else is kind of behind controlling. So it's interesting, conspiracy theory videos. I went down all those rabbit holes, tried to learn as much as I could. It was just interesting to me, to watch all these kind of YouTube videos and read a couple of books about who really kind of runs the country. And, there's names out there that we know that people have never heard about, that they should know who these people are, right? So it's kind of interesting that that's the case, right? So being like red pilled early on, kind of it there's people who get like red pilled when they learn about Bitcoin, like a red and orange pill at the same time. That's got to be the most profound thing ever. I didn't get that, but like what I did get was a solution to all the problems that I felt were unsolvable. So by red pilling yourself, it's almost scary. I had to step out a little bit because you kind of just it's not a good way to live. Almost like you kind of take the black pill path for a little bit. You're like, I got to tap out. This is just too much. I'm not happy. Right? There's no solution to this issue. I can't do anything about it. And then Bitcoin comes along, and that really is it kind of remedies all those feelings where there is a solution to all this, right? Like we can't take arms like they did during the American Revolution and stand up for ourselves because of, like taxation from abroad and, whatever else may be. But we can take Bitcoin and hold it in self-custody. And that is like the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, like that's how to take arms, right? Like there's something I could do to fight against the system. And then you start to see how powerful that system could be as a whole on a global level where everyone is sort of on the same standard and working towards a common goal. And like, this is how we fight it. And being red pilled, 10, 15 years before I bought Bitcoin was a very interesting time where it's like, okay, we have all these issues. Now Bitcoin's here and it's a way to solve those problems. And I'm sure a lot of people, that's not unique. A lot of people have had that happen to them before. And I think that's why a lot of Bitcoiners are, red pilled as well, just because it's a natural part of the process. But it makes you just feel a little bit more optimistic and hopeful. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Rather than, being red pilled and seeing kind of how the world really works to a certain degree and being upset, nihilistic, now you have the opportunity to embrace Bitcoin and have hope for the future, think into the future, and just try to better humanity with that item. And, as we know, the best part about it is, it's a great way to build the foundation for the future too, because no one is in full control. No one can rub you on that. It's a great thing to spend the time into study because it's got staying power.
How do you look at the topic of self-custody and mass adoption of it? As we talk about, Bitcoin is kind of awakening point for people. And I have two theories, and I'm actually torn apart between those things. The one theory is like, okay, most people will never care about self-custody at all. It's just always a smaller group of people. Because most people, like in the early days, people thought of the early days of the internet, people thought that we will run email servers all ourselves, but now everyone uses Gmail. So when you think about the implications of self-custody, do you think that will ever be a mass adoption where people not only use Bitcoin, but they actually do it themselves? They have the steel plate, they have some self-custody set up.
I think a lot of people are going to embrace it, right? If mass adoption means people are throwing their Bitcoin in hardware wallets and stamping their seeds in metal. I certainly hope that second part, right? That's good for business. Now, all jokes aside, I don't know, man. Like it's tough to think because I know people who have 7 figures in Bitcoin and it's not on a hardware wallet, it's on the exchange still. There is a huge trust in institutions still that is hard for people to kind of break through. And that maybe that's the people that aren't fully red pilled. I think if you're not red pilled, you're probably on the exchange. If you have a sizable amount of Bitcoin, it's a good chance. So it's tough considering that people with millions of dollars aren't in cold storage yet. It's hard to think, right? Most people would take that step. It's a huge amount of responsibility to have, right? People feel that there's a technical sort of hurdle that they have to climb over, and it's really not that hard to store your seed words. It's extremely easy to do. These wallets are getting better and better, and the user interface is getting better, and there's full screens and color and full keypads. So that's not that hard to do. The hard part is procrastination is one thing, of course, and then the responsibility behind it. What if I lose this? I don't trust myself. I trust the bank still, right? I trust these institutions still. And it's like a hard thing for people to become fully red pill, to distrust these things, to be like, no, I have to hold this. And what you see happen is kind of like, at least we're in the business, we see waves. So when the price of Bitcoin goes up substantially, like if it just, a little green candle hits, we see more sales. If the California wildfires come, we see more sales. There's fear behind what motivates people to get into cold storage. But those are people who already have Bitcoin, right? These aren't people who don't hold Bitcoin yet. So ultimately, the first step is to get people to kind of hold Bitcoin. But like we were saying before, I think mass adoption kind of means most people are passively holding Bitcoin that aren't really realizing they are. That said, there's no reason for them to stamp their seed and hold their keys. But who knows? Maybe there's like a collaborative self custody. That's a growing market. You have a lot of high net worth individuals going that route where there's a multi-sig setup. So rather than me having one wallet for a single signature, you could do a 2 or 3 multi-signature where that institution holds a wallet with a private key. You have a private key, and then another third party holds a private key, maybe a family attorney or another family member. And then if one of those were lost, you would still have the other two to kind of back it up. It's a nice way to, I guess, diversify the storage of the seed words. And, kind of if one light goes out, there's 2 other lights there to kind of send a transaction. So I think maybe that route would be more likely, where it's a multi-sig collaborative setup, or an institution custodying Bitcoin for somebody else. And as like Bitcoin price, I don't know for sure, but I feel that as if Bitcoin price goes up, more people adopt it, then the price kind of like flattens out a little bit. So there's less of that. There's less risk in the price movement. So maybe there's also less risk in holding it because it's more of a stable item. That people are okay with others custodying their coin, whether it be a banks can now custody Bitcoin, or a collaborative setup. And then I think you'll also have people who do both, right? Like, okay, it's part of my pension 401k, or I'm doing a collab that's like my family inherits, but I also have a single sig setup that I keep some on, and that is like my deep cold storage, right? These are coins that I'm like passing down to the next generation sort of deal. So I think like there's always a place for single sig, and stamping your seed words into a plate like that. That's always going to be a thing that exists. But I feel like as for mass adoption, there's going to be technology that supports probably like there wouldn't be a need to really do it, right? And I think like as Bitcoin becomes less of a thing you have to study to fully understand, more of a thing that kind of just gets dumped on the masses. We're like, hey, this makes sense to hold. Everyone else has it, or it's in my 401k. There's just less research there to understanding why you have to store your seed words and what it really means. So it's kind of like a unique thing, probably to Bitcoiners too, even. Like a lot of altcoins, NFTs, it's all hot wallet driven. Like these guys are like tapped into the internet with hot wallets, and they're buying, selling. They're not really looking to hold for the next 30 years like we are with Bitcoin. So to me, there's always a place, right, for a single sig, whether it's a plate hidden at your house, or you lost your wallet at the bottom of the ocean. There's always going to be that. So I don't know. I certainly hope so. But like I said before, man, it's tough. It really is tough to get people, even in Bitcoin and crypto, to even go into cold storage in the first place right now.
I'm also wondering sometimes if, because Bitcoin is so unique and actually incentivizes you to hold your own keys, to make your own node, maybe running your own node and stuff like that, if Bitcoin might be what, I don't know, the printing press did for society, what electricity did to society, and Bitcoin is not only doing the financial revolution, but also a social revolution where self-responsibility and the low time preference is getting mainstreaming and getting ushered in. And it kind of has like an golden age of self-responsibility. But maybe that's just dreaming from a Bitcoiner's perspective. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I do see a future where that happens, but part of me feels like it gets worse before it gets better for a lot of those people. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. Most people just don't want the responsibility of it. I could see that being a thing. You have to be extremely responsible to do self-custody properly. And it's going to be tough for a lot of people just to kind of do that in general. But yeah, as far as like self-responsibility goes, that'd be a huge thing, right? That kind of changes society in general. You're less reliant on the government, less reliant on mommy and daddy, less reliant on when the media is saying, and you're kind of self-reliant, and you're really focused on the community around you and the people that are actively in your life, I think, that is golden age right there, because you could, social media, right? People are on social media and it's mostly like, for the most part, negative, right? Anything that's on social is negative. If you go on Facebook and you look at a post and you're like, wow, this post went viral, then you read the comments, it's because like someone's talking shit about something someone's wearing in the video, or something they said, or a typo that they typed, or something they missaid. Whereas when you step out into your like local community, there's a lot less of that. People are mostly nice and helping each other. And, you want the world around you to be, I guess, everyone's got to, it's got to be, everyone's got to coexist. And, I think there's like responsibility like naturally built into that, because, you're out front with these people, living with them, kind of like don't shit where you eat sort of deal. But, it's still, to me, there's like a technical gap that I think it's hard to overcome with people with self custody. But, who knows? Wallets do get better. The technology from when wallets first came out is insane. Like I was kind of, I collect, so I have a lot of old hardware wallets that I just have. It's a fun thing to have. And then you look at the new ones and they're almost looking like cell phones now. So, obviously it wouldn't be air gapped, but maybe a cell phone that is also like a hybrid hardware wallet, cell phone. I could see that being a way that people sort of have cold storage, or possess their own Bitcoin. And, think about it, everyone has a phone in their pocket for the most part. So everyone's like naturally tapped in. So I see into the future where hardware wallets become integrated with cell phones. And some of them are actually starting to look like cell phones, that are out there, like or calculators. So it's kind of evolving to the point where maybe it's a multi-device. And then you have like a wallet I don't like, but I could see it being great for masses, for easy hooking up, is like the BitKey, Jack Dorsey's wallet. It's an interesting setup. Look into it if anyone hasn't heard it, but that does make it a little bit easier for people. So I think tech like that, does help, right? To expect most people to like get a seed signer and scan QR codes and do things like that, like that's never going to happen. It's got to be like this, right? There's no buttons on this. It's easy to use. Like people could pick it up, whether it's a child or an older person, and use it. So unless a hardware wallet is like that, I don't think so. So if it becomes integrated in the cell phone, yeah, I could see most people doing it.
I also wonder what the future in general will be with key holding and accessing systems in general. And when you look in the IT security crowd, they are going more and more away from that like password, username kind of a type, and they're more like two factors anyways, important. But I have some IT security friends, and they all have the sticks, how do you call it? The YubiKey, exactly, yeah. And they log in with that. So maybe we come in the future where key management and like having keys to enter something in the digital world is just becoming way more normal. And then maybe also with Bitcoin, it becomes normal. I don't know, like think about Apple, because they always write security and privacy in their the marketing things. Maybe they come up with like an Apple key where you can store actually local keys, and you can actually enter things. That could actually be maybe not the optimal for the sovereignty guys, but better than having it on exchange where you can transact with your Bitcoin if you have like your phone and you point it with your Apple key somewhere, and you have like a multi-signature where when you have your laptop, your Apple Watch, and your phone, and you have them in one location, you type on all three of them at the same time, and then you're sending a transaction. So I think there's a lot to come, I think, of innovation, and there will be a full spectrum of like hardcore Bitcoiner who have it not even in collaborative custody. They have their full self-sovereign setup with steel plates and everything like that, where there's nobody else involved, up until ETFs and exchanges and everything in between with like, as you mentioned, a BitKey or like Apple keys or like whatever. Like what happens if Apple and Samsung is now discovering Bitcoin, and they want to not only put it on a balance sheet, but also want to profit from a product around that. That's a really interesting thought. I think that also might happen. And we probably don't have a clue how self-custody looks in 10 years for the mass adoption, I'm thinking.
Yeah. No, it is interesting with YubiKeys and 2FA, which is becoming part of everything. People are going through the motions where they're getting used to having to pull out their phone to verify a code. There's so much scams that are happening. Like, I don't even open most emails anymore. Everything is basically a scam. Like, unless you call me or send a letter in the mail, like, I really, it's not that important. Like, right, that bill isn't that important unless you're mailing it to me or calling me. So there's a lot of scams out there. So, like, people going through those motions and getting used to, hey, this is a new way of life. I have to do this to make sure this doesn't get hacked and that I'm logging into the right software at work. They can't get compromised by people who are trying to find out what my company's doing or whatever. That's like an interesting stepping stone, right? They're going through those phases of confirming things with different devices. So if that becomes more of a thing, which with all these scams that are happening, it's likely that eases the you kind of break through that surf of going into cold storage. It just becomes, oh, okay, that makes sense to do this, right? Like, why wouldn't I do this with my Bitcoin? Of course, I should, have extra measures that are protecting it in place. Yeah, but then also as time goes on and banks get custody Bitcoin, and there's less dicey CD exchanges out there, which we're getting to that phase. Even though Bybit was hacked for a tremendous amount, which was converted to Bitcoin ultimately. But as those things don't happen as much, there might be less fear, right? So if there's no risk, people might feel safe with an institution holding it for them. They might not feel that there is risk, right? Same people that feel there's no risk holding dollars, right, that don't even understand what fractional reserve banking is, probably would feel no risk of a bank who says, hey, we custody Bitcoin, we insure it for this much, we'll hold it for you. That could be a thing. So it's really I think ultimately, if you think hundreds of years into the future, who knows? And who really knows? An event happens and everyone gets hacked or the systems go down, all of a sudden these things change overnight. So it's hard to guess, man. It's hard to guess.
Absolutely. I just hope that as many people as possible on the sovereignty side and not on the exchange sides, because freedom grab technology is the foundation for number grab technology. I think the one enables the other one, and so I sometimes see a threat in people are extremely on strategic Bitcoin reserve ETFs and just think of how can the Bitcoin number go up and the price go up, and don't care about the price. I don't care about the freedom grab technology, which is kind of might be a bad thing, but at least everyone can deal with Bitcoin as they want to, and that's in the end of the day the real thing for Bitcoin. It's permissionless. It's for everyone. So also people can choose if they trust custodians or not. I just hope we can bend a little bit towards self-sovereignty and self-custody.
Yeah. What forms of rehypothecation will exist, right, when banks custody Bitcoin? That's a fear, right? 21 million is something, right? That number only goes down over time, right? It only has gone down over time. I think there's only actually 19 million Bitcoin that are even accessible. Most is mined. So it's highly scarce. So if banks could custody it and rehypothecate it and then give out loans against it, it's almost like this world that we're stepping out of that we could step right back into again. So it's a little scary, but at the end of the day, holding real Bitcoin in cold storage, it's a superpower. It gives you a totally different feel as you're walking about life and going through different issues. You kind of have that with you. It's like walking to a bad neighborhood with a loaded gun, right? You feel different about it. So having Bitcoin in cold storage is, it's a life hack to me. So, hey, I'll keep doing that for as long as I'm alive. And, the next generation that I raise will do the same thing.
Absolutely, 100% agree. We have one question that I ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
Besides Bitcoin, man, I don't know. My life is becoming so intertwined with it. It's hard to think about that, but I don't really have any wise sage advice to really offer. It's really all Bitcoin focused for me. Like that's kind of like where my life is. I mean, everything kind of leads back to it, right? Everything intertwines with it, like keeping your body healthy, eating the right food. Like it's all like Bitcoin has motivated that like beyond belief. So like, I don't know, man. Hold your Bitcoin in cold storage, stamp your seed words into titanium, like these plates right here. That's great advice. Find a great spot to hide it. Um, Eat the right foods. You know that, you can't trust what any institution's saying, right? Just because somebody behind a camera that's like a really nice fancy camera that's on TV and it's, mainstream, like it does not mean it's true at all whatsoever. If you look back in history, governments have lied to people. Foods have been poisoned and they've been altered and they're still poisoned today. You just look at what history has told you and realize that like what you're being fed through mainstream media, through social media, these big talking head accounts is mostly meant to distract you from what is really happening in the world, and also meant to make you weaker, more docile, less independent. So question everything. It's really the best advice I could give. Do your own research on everything: Bitcoin, food, medicine. I mean, I don't want to say be your own doctor, but do your own research with everything, man. Like you have to question everything. It's too many people are passive and they're just happy with listening to what other people say. And like, I hope I don't offend anyone, but it's kind of like, I always like look at this segment of people as people who never got out of school mentality, right? Like these are like, they're still living life as if they're in grade school. The teacher's in charge. Their principal's in charge. She knows more than us. Like they put so much faith in authorities and institutions that are kind of like ruling them. And I think it's like a sense of safety maybe, but it's almost like they just never got out of school, right? Like get out of school, do your own thing, find your own field to study, and um, you know, don't trust, verify in every aspect of life.
I love that. I think it's so important for people to wake up and do exactly like the question more things. Like if you just start and like, okay, but why is that like that? And there's a fine line between being paranoid and having and still living a normal life. But I think most people are too much on the side of just accepting things as they enter their brain and not questioning enough. So if we get a little bit more on the paranoid side, I think it's a healthy thing for society, if that makes sense.
And it's like the fear thing kicks in for people who don't know something. It's fear of the unknown. It's like a natural knee-jerk reaction. I don't like this, so I'm going to be fearful against it and find something that's bad about it to shoot it all down. And I think that's what a lot of people are kind of like obviously fighting against. And it's just a matter of kind of breaking through that. So, the fear of the unknown is something that could really detract your entire life, right? And I would ultimately say, like, be a critical thinker about like everything, and don't let anyone say critical thinking is conspiracy theory, because that's just a fear reaction, and that's like a cop-out answer to most things. Most conspiracy theories that I've had have come true. Like the record is pretty good on those. It's just a matter of like lowering your time preference to wait for the truth to come out. But I'm like, critical thinking is critical thinking. It's not like being a conspiracy theorist at all, right? And I think that is like a tool that's used by the elite for other people who are more like parrots to regurgitate when they hear something that doesn't coincide with their safety that they feel by listening to these mainstream media or politicians or people in authority. It's kind of like a fear, and they don't even know why they're saying it, and they won't even bother to research what it is. So be a critical thinker. Yeah, that's my advice.
I love that. Really cool. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, when will we reach 1 billion Bitcoin users?
1 billion Bitcoin users. Wow. It's got to, 1 billion. Let me think. Bitcoin users meaning they hold Bitcoin on the exchange or they have it in self-custody? That's a tough.
That's a difficult question. Like what qualifies as a Bitcoin user? But I guess someone that has exposure to Bitcoin, even if it's because I think if we exclude the ones that have it on exchange, it takes a way longer time.
I don't know. I mean, within the next 15 years, that's the best guess I can give. Yeah.
Absolutely. Really cool. Thank you so much, James, for being on. Before I let you go, where can people find you and reach out to you?
Yeah, find me on X, at HammerSeed21. And then, you can find StampSeed on X too, at stamp_seed. And yeah, we have Bitcoin self-custody solution. You can stamp your seed words into a titanium plate, completely DIY. If you guys have questions, feel free to reach out and ask. Yeah. Yeah. Do I have to ask a question for the next guest as well? I just realized.
Yes, but I usually take that question offline. But if you already have one, you can give it to me now.
No, I don't have one right now. I'll get back to you. Let me think of it.
Really cool. Thank you so much, James, for being on. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye.